Hello, this is I'm So Cutie bringing you how to top cut on Shark Manor. We'll be going in depth on the Mulligan, the deck list, the tech cards, the weaknesses, and the pros of this deck in order for you to make top cut at your next set championship and or tweak this with the reprints of set 9. So let's get right into it. First, we're looking right at the deck list. Pretty standard. This is pretty cookie cutter to exactly what DKP ran. This is exactly what you want to do, veering from this list. The only thing you can really afford to veer from is the Brawl, the Goofy, and possibly the Hideaway, depending on your local meta, but the rest of the cards are pretty core and pretty 4 for 4. So we'll get right into it. Deck strength, obviously this is DKP's specialty. We have seen it time and time again when major tournaments. It can control any mid-range deck. This is referring to any deck that doesn't get to 10 lore by turn 7. So by turn 7 you're probably already sitting at around 10 or 11 ink. You're going to have Shark, and so if a lot of people in your area are playing Steel, more control versions of Steel, maybe even, I don't know, Green Steel, Red Steel, or purple red. Purple red, this deck does actually stomp on sometimes, depending on the builds, but an insane amount of card draw in the form of net zero resources. Develop Your Brain is an absolutely broken card, as well as How Far I'll Go, Merlin's Carpenter Bag, and Tamatoa Happy as a Clam. Using those resources and not over inking those resources is key in this deck. You will always find your answers if you're doing this correctly. Wide boards, for example, things that only quest for one in a purple steel deck and they're going wide and you might feel under pressure. One B prep after B prep, and they can't really do anything. Sure, they'll start accruing cards in their hand, but they also do not quest a lot. So by mid range, their goal is to end the game later on with combos and such. But at that point, you just are the stronger deck. You can force an incredibly quick lore gain in Ruby Amethyst matchups or matchups that also want to go to a very, very long turn, in the mirror even. If you establish your shark soon and you just start spamming develops, Hafars, accruing resources in your hand, forcing them to answer and answer and answer, the lore gain is pretty quick. You can go about 6 per turn even just with the shark on board and no other characters on board. So it is a very good card and good deck. Going into the weaknesses, it is susceptible to aggro. If they open 4 daisies, there is really nothing you can do about it besides just take it. There is no way to really accelerate the ramping of the deck without Fishbone Quill, and the resources in your hand are not quillable. Otherwise, you'll just starve and you'll end up losing regardless. Whole New World, uh, hitting Develop Your Brains, How Far It Goes, and those kinds of cards that kind of filter your deck and put the good cards in your hand, you're very susceptible to a Whole New World, and if you get discarded in a really bad position, you will likely lose the game and be stuck with only blue cards, and all your red cards are going to be in the discard. So these two. Aggro is a little bit, hit or miss, but Whole New World is a playstyle situation as well as discard and as well as purple locations. This is specifically like Ruby Amethyst or Purple Steel with Cobra and such. But choosing the correct things to develop into your hand and choosing the correct things to Hafar, choosing the correct things to sail, and choosing to leave, sometimes choosing to put the B prep at the bottom is correct, because you'll just filter through it later. And you have visions and all these other cards. So when you recognize Whole New, this is really big. And if you play into it, you will lose. If you play into the discard, you will lose. If you starve yourself and allow the location to go down, you will lose. And aggro is just hit or miss. Probably play draw. So that is the core strength and weaknesses for this deck. Overall, it is super consistent. I mean, it is 60 cards, 4 ofs almost all the way through, so I don't think you'll have any problems. Deck techs, Super Goof, Brawl, and Merlin's Carpenter Bags are deck techs. Depending on your local meta, if it is aggro in terms of things like Smee, Chernobogs, things like that, they need to kind of exist on the board for a lot more value. Super Goof is incredible. But if you're seeing like a lot of evasives, Diablo, Genie, Super Goof is obviously going to be ink. Even if you just want to say how far I'll go, right? Why not just establish Tala? It's just a tankier body if you do end up maybe slapping, a goat or a crab or anything. This doesn't do it. The lore game there doesn't matter, and Pirate's Life will likely be, the only card you can really get to. Brawl, again, if you see a lot of Diablo, a lot of evasive that you don't really want to devote B prep or Sisu to, Brawl is also really good. And even on curve, if you can't really hit the how far I'll go and you can only hit a sail on turn 3, it would be, you can flex one of these brawls in and it will slow them down heavily. So brawl is really good even at 2. I know you won't see it often, but even if you see it in the late game and you don't think you need it, you can ink it. Super good. Merlin Carpenter's bag is super interesting. DKP actually brought this one up, and in testing it is super good. It's basically just in the late game you'll be at 11 or 12 ink. In the late game you will have this established, and you basically just have a free beast on your board with an item, and this free beast that you've established may find you a Tamatoa to then draw 2 more. So in reality, you could be drawing 3 to 4 a turn simply because of a singular proc off this, and this card is super effective into discard. Uninkable and a 5 cost is super, super tight. That's likely why you only run 1. If your entire area is discard, maybe you go to 2, but at 1 you should be okay, especially choosing your develops correctly. Um, in DKP Shark, choosing to develop your brains and how far all goes and visions, all those choices matter and end up, deciding the game. So going into the mulligan, a blind mulligan core, you have no idea what you're going into, and you kind of need to do it. Uh, Having the ramp option for me is always super important, especially if they establish things like Chernabog, Little Diablo. Having the Tipo for a purple matchup is absolutely huge. Sail, though, if you end up finding another 1-drop or you keep another 1-drop as the other 2 cards in the 7, being able to popsicle, then sail, then hit another 1-drop to filter through the cards again, super good. Usually I decide to keep Tala, not knowing the blind matchup, and the Hafargo to be sung with Tala and hopefully find another Hafargo. But basically, you kind of keep these 4 almost always blind if you're on the play, especially because you're being very, very proactive, already filtering the deck and establishing a lot of ink gain. But Tipo is very important because sometimes you will not recognize that a singular, even merfolk, may gain a lot of lore. So Tipo is super important in the Blind Mulligan, and these are just general rules to follow in order to execute the deck correctly. As long as you follow this and you play Popsicle on 1, you go Sail, you play another 1-drop, or you just ink and pass, and then you establish Tala, you'll get to the top end of the deck and you'll start bouncing the combos around. You just have to establish correctly. This first hand is the most important in creating the flow of the game. A hard aggro, like especially like Daisy and things, a losing mulligan, you have to go defensively. You still want to see that pop. If you do not see turn 2 ramp, you have to find the develop your brain, because develop lets you in theory draw 2 cards to dig for the ramp, but you need to absolutely hit ramp in a hard aggro game. Even if you're on the play, even if you're on the draw, you need to hit it. Super Goof, to be kind of that in between the ramp turns. Super Goof is really good at slapping things. This is pretty self-explanatory, but again, know that you need to develop your brain if you do not see the turn 2 ramp in your first 7 cards, because develop is like drawing 2 cards, and that is an idea that is very core and very important to understand, because otherwise you lose a lot of tempo. And if you go into turn 2 and you draw, you don't find the ramp, you go and then next turn 3, you find the ramp, you're already too late, obviously. So moving on, these are the power cards of the deck, and this is the final kind of thing I want to talk about. Things that you can get rid of, um, but in reality you should try not to ever. Maui Shark is the way you win the game. Maui Shark farming is the way you win the game. Tamatoa is an absolute draw engine. Hitting a clam off a clam is absolutely devastating for the opponent. You will get so many cards in hand. Super important if you have the popsicles. Super important to win the game. And finally, B prep is your form of clearing. You are baiting your opponent to devote resources to your board of these high key characters. You're asking for the answer. You're asking for them to dwindle their hand down and lose resources while you're accruing resources. You B prep, they reestablish kind of, and then you just establish manners, and then they just cannot catch up, because manners, after they use so many resources and they're down to 2 or 3 cards in hand, after you B prep them, maybe they'll go to turn 4, maybe put down something that can slap for 4, right? uh, Establish another shark, establish a manor, bait this shark to be sung by Zeus, etc. I'm thinking like maybe goat steal, you know. These are just absolute power cards that you have to keep in mind. There are a lot of power cards in the deck that you just cannot get rid of. Popsicle, Popsicle if you can avoid it, Tala if you can avoid it, How Far if you can avoid it, the tech cards if you can avoid it. There's things where you will need these cards in the game and you'll kind of blame yourself for not keeping them or not finding them, and in reality it's because you did not filter correctly. So just make sure you know your power cards, and obviously up here I think I should have had Pirate's Life, because having Pirate's Life discarded is better than you inking it, because at least in the discard, Maui Shark still keeps it in play. These are just general ideas that I keep in the Mulligan, power cards, deck text, deck weaknesses, deck strength, and the deck list that I would run. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you win a set champ by playing this cookie cutter red blue.